Hi guys, it's Dawn with MakeupClasses.com. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. Today I have my beautiful, amazing, smart, fabulous friend, Dr. Felicia Stoler. Felicia, I am so excited for you to be here today, especially the fact that we're coming up on a big weekend that involves a lot of treats and goodies, but we'll get to that later. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. So good to be here.
Thanks. So for everybody that is not familiar with Dr. Felicia Stoler, I'm going to read. I have to read it, Felicia, because you have so many degrees. You're so well-versed. You do so much. So for me to memorize everything, I have to read off of paper because you're just so incredible. So Dr. Stoler is a registered dietitian, nutritionist, exercise physiologist, and expert consultant in disease prevention, wellness, and healthful living. She has a bachelor's from Tulane University, a master's in applied psychology and nutrition from Columbia.
Physiology. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
physiology. Physiology and nutrition. You might as well get a psych degree too.
Physiology, yes. The psychology, no. But yeah. It's a lot of psychology going on, but that's a different story.
That's right. From Columbia University and a doctorate in clinical nutrition from Rutgers University. Felicia serves on many local, state, and national committees related to health and wellness. Felicia is a fellow of the American College of Sports Medicine, a fellow of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, a diplomat in lifestyle medicine, that's ACLM, and a council member of True Health Initiative. She has hosted the second season of TLC's groundbreaking series, which was so fun. Honey, we are killing the kids. And the author of Living Skinny in Fat Jeans, The Healthy Way to Lose Weight and Feel Great. She has been a contributor of FoxNews.com, and her and I met at Fox, ThePatch.com, Active.com, and written several book chapters. Stoler has authored ACSM Sports Medicine Basics on childhood obesity. Felicia is one of the most sought after nutrition fitness experts for TV. And that's why I had to get her here for you guys. Radio, newspapers, online, and magazines in the U.S. She is passionate about helping people live healthier lives, from college professor to public speaker, influencer, and also a former U.S. congressional candidate. She resides in New Jersey with her two beautiful children and a single parent to boot.
Yes. My children are adults now, right? Like I've got a 23-year-old and a 20-year-old. So
awesome. Wow. So great. So great to have you here today. And especially with the summer coming, you and I have talked about this on the phone, how, holidays are a time where we, throw nutrition and health out the window because we're having fun. But we also believe, you and I talked about this, that the summer is also another time where we just kind of let ourselves go, eat whatever, do whatever. Perfect timing for you to be here with Memorial Day weekend coming up.
Well, right. And, a lot of people, because their schedules and their lives are different, people are having barbecues. There's a lot of holidays, graduation parties, religious things going on. Usually there's a lot of weddings in the summer. So, a lot of times people are eating whatever in front of them instead of thinking about their food in terms of what they need, what's good for them, and how is that applied to their health.
I think one of the important things that you stress in your book, Living Skinny in Fat Jeans, is it really is about lifestyle and lifestyle change, not so much dieting, but really changing the way you think. Talk about psychology.
Right.
It really is about the way we
In
think.
my book, I talk about the word diet as an acronym standing for "Did I eat that?" Right? Because
Yes.
really a diet is the sum of your habits and behaviors when it relates to food and beverages. And people often think that a diet is something that you go on and off of, and that couldn't be any further from the truth.
Yes, yes, it really is a lifestyle. Now, one of the things that you say in the book, well, first of all, you are very candid and honest, which a lot of people don't share, that you actually had a weight problem at one time. And you wrote that I had to learn how to love myself no matter what clothing size I wore, no matter how much I weighed. I was not defined by my body. It was the person inside that mattered. And I think a lot of women, especially, struggle with this idea of this perfect weight or perfect look. How did you come to terms? Did you have like the Jesus moment that you needed to change? What were you thinking
I
at that
think
time?
for me, it was that I was working in Wall Street and I worked very long hours. And this is, I know people don't understand this, but there was a period of time in the late 80s, early 90s when gyms were not open 24 hours a day. They were open like 8 a.m. to, let's say, 7 or 8 p.m. And I had to be at work for those hours. And it wasn't so easy to just go sneak out on my lunch break and go work out. So all of a sudden, I realized I was 20 pounds overweight. Like my clothing wasn't fitting right. And then I looked at myself in some pictures, even though like I didn't feel different. I looked at myself in some pictures and I'm like, ugh, I'm not really happy. And then I changed jobs and I was able to have a job. I was working at ABC News and I was able to have a position where I had more flexibility and I had more quality of life where I could go to the gym, where I read in the morning and I go to the gym after work. And I was getting bad advice from the trainer at the gym. And I just like, I couldn't feel like I was able to lose the weight. And I went to a doctor like crying. I'm like, oh, I must have a tumor. I can't figure out why I can't lose weight. And he said, I'm just the perfect girl for you, like gal for you. And it was a woman who had a double master's from Columbia in nutrition and exercise science. And I sat with her and I cried in her office. That was when fat-free was all the rage. And I had tried doing fat-free. I had done diet pills. I had done, been a vegan, like, you name it, I did it. And I'm not prescription diet pills, like whatever was it like, what was it like Dexatrim or whatever that stuff was.
Right. Sure.
That stuff anymore. But anyway, I had tried, I read all this stuff in the magazines. I have like 8 weird food combinations. And she said, the problem is that you don't understand how the body works and you read a lot, but you don't know how to put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave me permission to eat fat. And I literally spent a whole summer not drinking. I know you're not going to believe this, but I was going out to the Hamptons and I'm like, well, how badly do I want to lose this weight? So for like 3 months, I just did not drink. And out of the 20 pounds that I had to lose, I lost 10 pounds over the summer. Then it took me a full year to lose the rest. And with the exception of being pregnant, I never gained it back, and even after my pregnancies, I always lost the weight. Admittedly, I am going to say I'm a little bit heavier now that I've been in menopause for 4 years, or I don't know when menopause like started and ended.
Well, you look amazing. You look gorgeous.
I haven't had my period in 4 years. So whatever that is, I'm 54. I'm proud of it. But
right. You go, girl.
I feel like I look better than I ever have. Right. I'm in the best shape of my life. And I'm very active and vibrant. I eat well. I exercise a hell of a lot more than I ever have. And so when I kid around about like weight, it's just a number on a scale. I may actually have more muscle mass than I had before. It may be that my hormones shifted so I can actually achieve a different level of muscle mass than I had before. But I don't think about that anymore. All my clothing fits and I'm happy that it fits me. And I think about living healthy in my body. You reach a point in time, it's like looking good. And then it's like getting married, right? Then it's having babies and losing the pregnancy weight. And, then then it just becomes like, well, where are you at, and where are you at with your life and your health? And, when you get closer to 50, you start thinking about mortality and how am I going to live longer, vibrantly, without needing medications, without needing, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so, I've paid attention.
When did you start your education in the field? Was it after you lost the weight? When did you decide to get into nutrition
That's a
as
great
a career?
That's a great question, because I was working at ABC News. That was my second career. And I thought about going to graduate school to get a master's degree in journalism. And I went to speak to the woman who hires all the producers and all the on-air talent. And I had said to her, I'm really thinking about getting a master's in journalism. And working in New York, you could go to NYU, you could go to Columbia. I mean, they both have excellent journalism schools. I didn't have to go anywhere. I mean, I could have worked full time. And I actually did work full time and go to grad school. As it turns out, she said, why don't you become an expert in something that you're passionate about and see if you can't work it back into media? And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So I called up my old dietitian and I said, where'd you go to school? And she said, Columbia. And like my heart sank. And I went,
wow.
Oh my God, I'm never going to get in there. I didn't do great in college. I mean, I did great in socialization and leadership skills and interpersonal skills. And I got my foodie on. I mean, I realized I knew I was always smart, but when I went to college, it's like, it can be a great equalizer. Everybody gets into school that is best for them, but everybody else is as smart as them. So like when I was in high school, I'd have to work very hard, and I was in the top, 10% of my class, and I got straight A's without working. And then I got to college and everybody's equally as smart, and I didn't know how to study. It wasn't that I didn't have the brains to do it. I just did not know how to study. It was very different. And I know I went to school in New Orleans. I'm not going to say that that was the reason. That was the distraction. I was a very meticulous student. I just really honestly did not know how to study right. So it was very different than high school. And I didn't think that I got like the adequate preparation for that. But I had to do all these science prerequisites for grad school. And I applied to Columbia and I got a conditional acceptance because I was applying at like 28 years old. I'd been working for a number of years and they were really open and willing to, like, I went and sat in on some classes and they said, listen, if you can get at least a B or better in like, and they, gave me 5 classes. I had to take 3 semesters of chemistry, intro to nutrition, and anatomy and physiology. If I got a B or better in those classes, I could get accepted to the program. And I had to take the GREs and do like above whatever the was. And I got straight A's in all those classes. And I did graduate school. And so, when you go to school for something, that you're interested in and passionate about, it makes a very big difference. And I also think as an older adult learner, I had more maturity to focus and spend time. But, I worked full time and went to school full time at night. So I just, want to be like clear, like I didn't
and had the kids.
I had my daughter while I was in grad school too. But I love it. I have to look back. It's been a fantastic journey. I've had the opportunity to work in media, which is great. I always say what I'm good at is translating the science into consumer-friendly terminology, which is fantastic. And it's a tremendous skill to be able to do that and do it in a succinct and often quick manner, because scientists can be very wordy. And when you're doing a TV interview, most TV interviews, they like book you for like a 4-minute spot, and you're lucky if you spot time. Like, people don't get that. There's very specific media training that has to go on so you could do that. And anyway, then I went on to graduate school and I did my doctorate, and I've never looked back. I just keep going forward, and I'm just always forging forward. And a number of years ago, I did a board certification in lifestyle medicine. There was no lifestyle medicine 20 years ago. And when the American College of Lifestyle Medicine came around and they created this board certification, and you have to have at least a doctorate to do this program.
Wow.
I was like, wow, this is the greatest marriage of the 2 things that I love: exercise and nutrition and food. And, you add in things like sleep and stress management and, these, and no smoking and, watching your alcohol intake. I mean, that's really what lifestyle medicine is, and it's great. And it's I don't know. I mean, I make a living helping people feel good. How could that not be good?
That's
right?
amazing. And I love the fact that you were able to put your loves together, the communication, the broadcasting, and then enter nutrition, exercise, diet. And like I read earlier, you've done so much with your career over the years. It's really amazing. You are an inspiration to so many women out there. I want to ask you, let's get back to your book, because you have so many like good little tidbits. You were reminiscing about your grandmother when it comes to food.
Yeah.
Your grandmother had suggested to you, you were eating corn or something.
Oh yeah,
corn, exactly, corn. And she had suggested that you tried something different. So this is when Felicia was younger. She said, we all know that nothing tastes as good as local corn in August and September, especially in Jersey, right?
Yes.
I actually buy it by the bushel when it's in season and freeze it. My grandmother taught me how to truly appreciate the flavors of foods. As I was about to rub an ear of corn with butter and salt, my grandma Jeanette stopped me and said, Felicia, do you have any idea what corn really tastes like? It has flavor that is really unique. Eat it plain so that it doesn't just taste like butter and salt. Mm-hmm. From that moment on, I learned to appreciate the sweet flavor of fresh corn. Just to switch gears for a bit, I believe, and I know you agree with this, that we've become a culture that like tosses everything on top of our food, whether it be a condiment or salt, butter, sugar. And I think sometimes that part of my problem is eating processed foods and not getting back to nature. I've gotten better over the years. Speak to that. Why it's so important to eat whole foods and to be mindful of bad habits, in my opinion, throwing butter and salt on everything.
Well, I mean, look, all those things make food taste good. And what happens is so many people just get in the habit of just taking a salt shaker out and salting their foods. Is it compensating for something that isn't prepared well? I mean, some people you can use herbs, for example, and spices to add flavor to foods without just adding salt. I mean, there is some value to salt, and going back hundreds of years, salt and sugar were used to actually preserve food. So it's not that it's so uncommon that we used it. Think about a pickle. If you think about what a pickle is, there's actually sometimes there's sugar and salt in the liquid to help preserve food. People can, right? Vegetables or fruits, they've been doing that for a long time. So it's not that stuff is just so inherently bad. Like, people learned how to use that to preserve food when there was no refrigeration around. So, but
great point. But
I think people have just gotten so accustomed to using it, or maybe, when we go out to eat at restaurants, so often restaurants or prepared foods or processed foods are prepared in a manner to meet the American palate. The American palate is so accustomed to, again, overly sweet, overly salted foods. Believe it or not, though, a lot of food manufacturers, because of what I've done for so long, I've really been very privileged in being brought to a lot of food companies to work and see their test kitchen, to try foods, to see innovation, and to see where really for the last 20 years, like, I know that a lot of people like to bash food industry and companies that make packaged foods, but I
eat it. I can bash it, but I eat it.
We all do. And I mean, like, I'll give you a great example.
I love it.
Like, all the companies, from like Unilever to Campbell's, like, they have all taken their packaged foods, and there was a period of time where it used to be a big thing to put it on the label that it was low sodium or sodium free. And what they found is that people either didn't buy it, or they assumed that it didn't taste good. So what happened is, over time, a lot of those companies just reduced the sodium and didn't tell people that they were doing it. So, like, for example, when we went to Campbell's and we tried like the classic tomato soup, they made what they make now, in 2021 is not the same that there was in the 1950s. And they made us the soup with the exact formula from the 1950s, and like nobody could put it near their mouth. It was so salty. So they were
Wow.
trying to show that it's not that they're really trying to be super sneaky on people, but those companies are in the business to make money. They're not in the business to kill us, right? Like they're trying to they are making foods that people want and need to eat. And there's a value in convenience, and everybody doesn't know how to cook, have the time to cook, have the resources to cook. You know, there's so much that we take for granted. I have friends that work with some food pantries, you know, we just
Yes.
assume everybody's got a full-on kitchen. You know, what about somebody that's an amputee that only has one arm? You know what I mean?
That's
Like
right.
an
That's
open
right.
food, or somebody that doesn't have the ability to cook, you know, or they don't have the, maybe they don't, they're handshakes and they have tremors. It's very hard for them to cut. Like there are so many reasons why we have to stop being food elitists when it comes to food, and recognize you can make healthier choices. They can be in packages. There's a value in convenience. Like one of my favorite convenience items is frozen chopped onions are always in my freezer.
Oh, me too. I love that. It saves you from your mascara running.
I know, like I'm always crying when I'm cutting onions. So, I mean, there is a value in having certain foods. Like even if you're going to the grocery store and you buy rotisserie chicken and you get a bag of spinach and you're microwaving it or sauteing it yourself, or Brussels sprouts or string beans, whatever it is, like you can still feel like you made that meal by taking some foods that maybe because of the way they're packaged, they're convenient, but you can also cook it yourself, and you can do it just as quickly as you would going to a restaurant, if not quicker, and for a lot less money. And then you can control what's in it, right? So then you know that you're not adding extra like salt to it, or you don't have to add butter to it. And so I think that there is, you know, a lot of value in that. And
I agree. I think you're just so cool. And the fact that you're so approachable when you talk about nutrition and diet, it keeps it real. Because we all have these things in our kitchen, and there is a lot of food shaming going on in the US. And
tremendous.
I have no shame.
I call it food elitism. You know, people, like somebody said to me the other day, could you explain to me what the macro diet is? I'm like, the macro diet. I was telling people macros 20 years ago. You know, it's
Okay.
the ratio of macronutrients. How much of your calories are coming from carbohydrates, protein, and fat? Folks,
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't that the basics of macro diet?
but somebody, instead of calling it macronutrient, calls it macros. Now it sounds sexy, you know? There really isn't anything in the dieting space that's really new. I mean, the only thing I could say that I consider new, you know, keto diet is, you know, it's really, that's not new, right? I mean,
Right. It's just not eating sugar and a lot of junk food, in my opinion.
I mean,
and it works.
keto is not that dissimilar from like an Atkins style diet. I mean, you eliminate carbs, you're going to eliminate some calories, you're going to eliminate water. The truth is, you still need carbohydrates. Like you can't change the physiology of the body. That's what one of my professors said at Columbia. You cannot change the physiology of the body. We cannot change the way the body works. Our body can adapt and use other macronutrients for energy, but there is the preferred fuel source, which is carbohydrates. So I'm not a carb shamer. I'm not a carb
Me neither.
user. I eat lots of carbs. People just don't understand. They're like, how do you stay so
I
thin?
love carbs.
Like that's the secret. The secret is eat more plants always. You know, it's always eat more plants, eat food close to the way it's found in nature. If you look at things like longevity zones around the world, the blue zones, places where people live to be 100 or more, the one thing they all have in common, they all eat mostly plant foods.
Yes. I love that breakdown in the book that you do by continent and areas of the world. And when I was looking at the chart that you created, it seemed like the majority of the planet is mostly plant-based. I mean, that's really what we eat. And then meat seems to be more of a luxury, first world convenience, very expensive also.
So when I was in grad school and I was taking my chemistry prerequisite, I had an instructor. She was from the Caribbean somewhere, lovely lady. She was so smart. And she's, when we were talking about protein, right? As as part of chemistry, she said, you know why I came to America? Why? She said, because protein's cheap. Think about that.
Oh, interesting.
It is less expensive in the United States than anywhere else in the world. Even in communities where perhaps, communities are not as affluent. If you go to those stores, I mean, maybe the best cuts of meat aren't the the best cuts of meat are not maybe as affordable, but there's
Sure.
plenty of protein foods in America that are affordable. I mean, really, it's truly like the cheapest protein in the United States is are beans, eggs, and milk. So if you are looking to in terms of being on a budget, what you could do, you can get enough of that. And people forget that there are amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein, in all food groups except fruits. So, again, like we have been conditioned, and I'm not going to blame necessarily the protein industry, but I will blame a little bit of the protein industry. And I will also blame a lot of the supplement companies that, I don't work with supplement companies, so I don't mean to take offense. I mean, I was on the medical advisory board for GNC for a number of years. Like that's all they did was sell protein shakes. But think about that. Like people think they need a protein shake. I cannot tell you how many times people are like, what kind of shake should I have? I'm like, none. How about like just chewing your food? How about like look at your diet and see if you even need extra protein? Most people don't. Protein, energy, malnutrition is not a problem in the United States. And it hasn't been since the 60s, if that, maybe even before then.
I love what you write in the book also. Speaking of diet, I love this. When I read this, it was on page 2. I was like, oh, this is the line. This is the paragraph in the book. This really sets up, I think, everything that you believe and teach. Nutrition and exercise intervention are the least expensive, least invasive, and most effective ways to prevent and treat diseases. I think we tend to look for a surgery or a pill or this magic like diet, like we've been talking about, to solve all our problems, but it really is so simple.
It is. And that's why, even as I said to you before, you look at aging, the foundation for heart disease is really established in the first 2 decades of life. And that doesn't mean that you can't undo that, right? Because I'm like, wow, I finished up my master's degree when I was like 30 years old. Like, am I doomed because I may not have eaten well the first 2,
That's so interesting. The first 2 decades, really? That's where, explain that science.
I'll explain it. So what happened was during the Vietnam War, when they were doing autopsies on soldiers, and most soldiers that died in Vietnam were like 18-year-old men, boys, right?
Yeah, kids.
And they were doing autopsies on them. They did happen to look at their organ structure, and they were looking at their heart, and they were looking at their arteries and their vessels, and they saw the foundation of heart disease was well established in a lot of those young men. So think about that.
Wow.
So think about that, and then think about diet, right? It has to be because of the diet. I mean, and foods were, I'm not saying they were very different, but the way people ate was different then, right? There was a lot of butter, a lot of salt, a lot of fat, a lot of margarine, a lot of fried food. I mean, foods were different, right? Even packaged foods were different. But so if you look at that, I mean, and they didn't necessarily die of heart attacks, but when you open up that many young people to autopsies and you see that, you have to, you don't look at, it's what we would call correlational, right? So there's a correlation there, but not a causation. But if you look at that, I mean, their cause of death was not heart disease. But if you open them up and you look, you have to then work backwards and say, well, what is it that was going on? So you have to kind of think about, well, how were people eating?
Wow. And I think that's so important, especially for young people. You were on the show, honey. We're killing the kids. It really starts when we're young.
Yeah.
Felicia, we are out of time. You are just so amazing. That's why you're one of my girlfriends too. I just love you.
Thank
So
you.
smart. So much. I mean, please, I want you to come back.
We can do
because
it again. We can do it again.
Oh my goodness, we need you because beauty really starts on the inside. It really is what you eat, and that's what comes out for sure. Thank you so much for
Yes, you're so
sharing your
welcome.
wisdom today. I love you. Mwah.
Love
Have
you
an
too. Thank
incredible,
you.
thank you. Have a
Girls.
wonderful Memorial Day weekend. What's that?
The Jersey girls. Woo,
That's
woo.
right, Jersey in the house. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you next time with another celebrity interview. Have a great weekend, everybody.